I wanted. Oh, man. Yeah, I do know.
Are you saying it's cold outside now?
It's getting colder.
I know, I didn't wear my
Wow.
No, I
Yeah, Sky.
Sky. You go with it.
Yeah.
I heard a bunch of sirens here.
I know.
I'll just, like it's helpful, maybe I look at it a while ago.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, because that's my answer. It's gonna be this year.
No, because they had names on the horse. So it's just kind of a period.
I don't.
They are on. You know, the kids did it for iPad during the banquet, so she got the car, and the iPad. The Jack was driving, so then everyone was trying to.
So we have a motion to come out of closed session. We need to take that. Yeah.
So all in favor to come out of closed session, say aye.
Aye.
Moving on to approval of the agenda.
We have a couple changes. We are tabling old business letter F. And we are tabling new business letter G. No, excuse me, letter H.
Okay. So with those changes, is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Moving along to the approval of the previous minutes.
Motion is Board of Education approves the minutes of the January 22nd board meeting.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Moving on to consent agenda. We have district bills as of February 26, 2024, building activity reports, non-certified personnel recommendations. We have no resignations at this time, but for hires, we have Mark Cruz, the volunteer JV softball coach at Morrison High School. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call.
Fulhurst.
Yes.
Felixson.
Yes.
Combo.
Yes.
Wilkins.
Yes.
Danhoff.
Yes.
Engelken.
Yes.
Lucky.
Yes. Moving along to the communication public comments.
Nobody signed up?
Nobody signed up? Okay. Good news from around the district.
So over the past couple of years at Northside, our growth at the end of the year on our MAPS assessment has been really good, but our math has always been better than reading. And so we were trying to figure out how can we get those reading scores up higher with math. And so the teachers did a fantastic job. All the classroom teachers, Stephanie Schaefer, Denise Batterton, Karen Mayberry, Kelly Eastman, Heather Bush takes a group for part of the day. And anyone takes up a group. They meet for about an hour a day. We're doing differentiated groups. targeting specific skills, and I attached it here in the board packet the past 2 years and then what our growth was for this year. Quite a bit higher. Reading and math, our reading and math are a lot closer. Interesting thing about our math that improved as well. Karen Mayberry, our math interventionist, takes a group during that reading time, teaches them how to read a word problem, how to break a word problem, turn it into how do you know what to do within that word problem, things like that. So that's been some of the payoff there. So it's looking very promising so far. It's been a lot of work for the teachers. I'm really proud of all the work they've put into this. And so far, the payoff has been really great. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the spring looks like, and I'll share that once we have that in May.
That's awesome.
Yeah, very good.
At Southside, we kicked off our Mustang Mentors program. So we had the Kindness Club with our 4th graders, and now Ms. Robinson has started the Mustang Mentors. So we have 5th grade students doing some tutoring sessions and just kind of playing some games and making connections with some of our 3rd graders. So just to try to build those relationships and bonds as they go through school. The other thing I wanted to make a statement about was our 5 Essential survey. We've had a lot of our parents jumping in and taking that. We were at 26% for response rate already. So it was a really exciting thing to see. 100% students, and now we're at 76% for the staff. So things are looking really good there.
In my notes or minutes, I put our wrestlers competed in the regional wrestling tournament this weekend. We are sending 5 kids on to the sectionals. We had Kale Wright and Eli Modulin both placed first in their weight divisions, and Uriah Wright, Mason Grismore, and Trevor Tipton all qualified. They all got 3rd place. So they'll be in the sectional tournament this weekend, and then hopefully we get a few to qualify for state. So good luck to those boys.
All right, some information just to share with you guys. The first 2 are a couple of our Whiteside Area Career Center students that were chosen as students of the month for January. Evan McDonald was chosen for the building and construction trades as student of the month for January, and that's back-to-back months. We've had a student win that award for building trades. And then Elmeda Desaldini was chosen from the early childhood education class as the student of the month for January over at WAC. We actually took a tour. I took 73 sophomore students from all the sophomores from, the sophomores from Morrison with the school counselor, Ms. Streets. It was really great to see all the programs there, to see a lot of our students in those classes. The highlight for me was definitely seeing our students in that early education class. There's about 6 or 7 of them in with a bunch of pre-K students at WAC, which is really great to see those guys. 4 of our students were selected to represent MHS at the Woodlawn Art Competition. Landon Cook, Zaylee Boonstra, Will Lane, and Anna Blevins. The winners are decided by a vote on Facebook. So if you get online, look for the Woodland Arts Competition. And I've included those pictures because you don't see the students, you just see their art. So you can't vote for them by liking them unless you know what their artwork looks like. So you got to match it up there with one of those. They all 4 did that kind of, or 3 of them did that same project where they're creating a portrait out of a bunch of different designs. Congratulations to Mr. Bartos. He was selected as the Country Financial Teacher Spotlight recipient by IHSA. This is a newer award. It's designed for staff members that don't just coach. So doing scholastic bowling, being involved in things like that. If you've met Mr. Bartos, he is just an absolute joy. So that was a nice recognition for him. Kind of was able to spy on him and get some of those pictures without him totally knowing that he was going to win that award from IHSA. Staff member of the month for January was Mrs. Landis. She had a number of high school girls that nominated her. She gets a lot of nominations each month, so it was great that she won that random drawing last month. She got lunch with the kids. She got a sausage Little Joe, and I got a large cheesy bread for the kids to share. So that was nice. We'll have February coming up here soon, so we'll have that announcement next quarter. February 5th, our Morrison FFA alumni held a pancake breakfast fundraiser for the greenhouse, which we had the fundraiser on Saturday as well. Both of those, I think, were fantastic events. I wish I had gotten a piece of that carrot cake that went off for $1,600 left on Saturday. But
it turned out to be chocolate.
Oh, there you go, right? Yeah. Well, I'd say that's a win-win, right? But no, the kids went over during the day on the 5th and helped out with that fundraiser. On the same day on February 5th, the girls basketball team hosted Erie Prophetstown. Cameron Veltrot became the all-time leading scorer in girls basketball history. She topped 1,403 points that night. I do not have a total for her right now because that was about 2 weeks left in the season, plus some regional games. So she's coming back next year as a senior and already has the scoring title. So that's a pretty big accomplishment. Kind of near the end here, the day before Valentine's Day, 19 of our students, blind leaders and then freshmen, delivered a Valentine to every nursing home member or every nursing home resident in Morrison, which I thought was a really neat thing to do when they were telling me about it. To hear that they were doing it was positive, and the fact they made one for every single person. Unfortunately, not all the people were happy to get them, but those are stories too. The kids told some of those. The last thing, this is from Saturday. Last Saturday, the Scholastic Bowl team that Mr. Bartos coaches, I mentioned them earlier, they ended up going 7 for 7 at the sectional Scholastic Bowl meet, which is a great way to end their season because it's not over. Now they move on to state, so they will go to state on Saturday. They're just riding a high right now. Kids work really hard all year. Mr. Bartos practices almost daily with them and keeps them going and motivated. So it's really, really great to see them finishing strong and then, like I said, moving on to state down in Bloomington.
Awesome. Okay, moving along to reports for finance, facility, and enrollment. Finance facility, sure. You want to just talk about what we talked about today? Okay, so we met today and kind of talked through the different projects that we're working on and that we're looking at. The first thing is for the track. We have a new architect that looked at the track and kind of walked through and is meeting with some local companies. For the track, we can actually use a co-op purchasing as opposed to bid. So we're able to kind of reduce that cost, hopefully, and look at different options to get that done. As far as the HVAC, I think there's still a few things that we're looking at to get completed. And then that should be done, in the next month or two, yeah. And I know the sign I think we're gonna talk about later on. The big one is the door replacement. Matt, you walked around with him and looked at the high school doors, and they're in pretty bad shape. I don't want to talk about that at all.
Yeah, so I don't know if we can do all 3 floors at once, but I'd like to start at whichever floor needs it the worst, and there's some grant money available, and just replace all the doors. And as you go through, there is some in the high school that are kind of loose and about to fall out because it's original to the building. So I think that's a really good thing, and as a board, we'll have to talk about, it's very expensive to do every door in the building, but I think we need to start a floor at a time and start making some improvements there.
And the numbers, originally we were budgeting more like in the 200,000 range with the grant being 50. When the architect looked at it, he's looking more at like $630,000 for all the doors. And so it's going to be kind of a conversation of how we don't want to lose that grant. And so we have that. And if we need to pay that back because we don't do it, however, these doors are in bad shape. And if we have some that are falling in, they're not, safe for the school, they need to be replaced. It's one of those capital projects that we have to look at. We have $2.8 million in bonds that we took out for this purpose. And so if we, like Matt said, if we start on one floor and kind of work that way, so we at least can use that grant money, it's a good way for us to kind of get that rolling.
And then the other thing we're looking at is the old part of the middle school, which I have to apologize for Joe. I've never been in those bathrooms until a week or two ago. But I think that's going to add to the list too. The architect's going to get that going because they need done way worse than the ones at Northside. I apologize to the Northside people, but they're welcome to go look and prove me wrong.
So the grant that Aaron and Matt are alluding to is a school maintenance grant. You apply for it. They usually do one a year. It's a $50,000 grant. We wrote it a year ago to help offset the cost for replacing of those doors. We just now got a quote, and it's expensive, but needs to be done. We can pay back the grant. We haven't touched the grant, so the grant is just sitting in the bank. So if we can't get it done this year, we want to do it, we can just simply give that back. It's a loss. But $50,000 is $50,000. So I think the approach of one floor at a time is one that's certainly doable and worth looking into.
Yep, for sure.
Because those doors are original to the building, they're 65 years old.
Yep. And the other thing that we're kind of investigating is looking at a scoreboard at the high school that could potentially generate some revenue. And I think that's something as we're looking at athletic programs and being able to kind of offset those costs. Just looking to get more information on that. I think, is it Fort Byron has one. Fulton? No.
Fulton has one, but it's not the
Not
same
the
one.
same
that we're
company.
looking at.
Okay.
But it has an LED screen and then you get local businesses to advertise and that kind of.
Basically, are you talking about getting branded though, like branding of some sort? A company that sponsored the scoreboard?
Well, it wouldn't so much be sponsored. I mean, yeah, it's certainly that you could, but it would, the money from the ads would go back towards the
Okay,
school.
I
So
gotcha.
in itself, you pay that money, but I think they're making, that money back.
It did not take very long to recoup your money.
No.
Oh, okay, that's right, that's right.
It pays for itself in 2 years.
Okay.
That's very quick turnaround.
Mhm. Yep, and so I think that's
You're
something
making money.
we definitely have to look at as we're looking at, athletic programs and being able to support that in the future. Yep.
Enrollment took a hit this month. We're down to 976 kids, which is 5 less than where we were last month and 22 less than where we were last year. Northside's seen a fluctuation of kids coming and going, so I don't have an answer.
Well, and the reality is that kids move on or kids move, I mean, they're, we don't have control over that.
They're moving in with grandma and grandpa. They're
Yes. Mhm.
much more local.
Okay, so let's move on to old business. We have our fund transfer.
All right, the motion is the Board of Education approves the transfer of $250,000 from the working cash fund to the operation and maintenance fund to cover regular expenses.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
What is the 254? I mean, is it earmarked for something specific or?
Yeah, I don't, nothing specific, just to cover expenses, whatever the bills
They
are.
are bills.
We usually have to
Yeah,
do this.
we have to do it every year.
Yes.
Okay.
yes.
So this is normal.
This is not a singular cost.
So, okay, so we don't like put money aside in that fund at the beginning of the year, we just kind of transfer it.
We used it, the revenue generated by that fund is grossly under the expenses. So our savings or our reserve fund is gone. We've depleted that. So that's why we have to transfer that money in there. So it's,
That's because we don't have budgets outlined, right?
that doesn't, the costs of running the buildings far outweigh the revenue that we get from our levy.
Sure.
Yeah. You're only bringing in $54,000 in levy taxes and your bills are
Yeah.
approaching 7 figures. It doesn't go very far.
It's a good question.
It is a good question.
Okay, a roll call.
Wilson,
Yes.
Cromwell,
Yes.
Wilkins,
Yes.
Sample,
Yes.
Angleton,
Yes.
Folkers,
Yes.
Lucky.
Yes. MIT fees.
We have a number of kids who attend MIT in sort of a dual credit program. Historically, we started off this, it's a $500 fee. The district covered 340 of it. The families were responsible for the other 160. Somewhere along the line, that has gotten informally changed to where we're paying all of it. So I'm asking for input from the board. Do you want to stick with us paying all 500, or would you rather reiterate the split? WACC kids are responsible for paying some of their tuition as well.
How many
How many students?
informally go to us paying it? I mean,
Yeah, how did that happen? Or just, was it like something that expired in the agreement or?
I'll explain it.
Oh,
We're not
okay. But somehow it
We're not in
happened.
open session.
Somehow it happened.
It would involve speaking specifically about
Okay.
employees, so
No, we need to.
How many students go?
I think we have 5.
It's not many. It's a small group.
Like
I mean, that's
The
not
lab
an
group is
unreasonable
huge.
cost for what they're getting,
Yeah,
it's above beyond. I wish we could pay more, but
can we structure it somehow where they have to complete the class before we pay the bill?
I'd have to ask MIT that.
because at least then we're not paying for someone that doesn't want to be there.
Well, somebody would have to pay it up front.
Well, I'm saying there could be a way in the contract where you say if you don't pass, you
Well, I
pay
mean,
the
MIT's
bill.
gonna want their money up front.
Well, MIT can get their money, but I like what you're saying is that if
Research.
the student doesn't finish it,
Yeah, or they don't
Yeah.
pass.
If they finish it, they're required for more of the cost, and then we'll reimburse them for part of it. If they
I like the reimbursement better.
I think we can.
How about I draft some language
That's a
and I'll
good
bring it
idea.
back. for
Or they
next
just,
month.
pay their.
Because it will need a
their
formal
part.
action, so this is just
Yeah.
discussion.
I think it's a good idea.
I don't think it's unreasonable to have.
No.
If wax kids are paying their.
Driver's ed, everything else that's extra.
But yeah, definitely need to share their costs.
Wow.
It's an investment.
All right, moving on. The high school schedule.
I have just some examples for you guys to see, just continuing this conversation. Just sharing some info. I mocked up what would be a block schedule. That's fast enough for a second. I do need these back. These are drafts, so this is something that if it changes and the version gets different, then it's confusing and conflicting and things like this float around. So you guys can look at them. Scott, there was a link on the last slide if you want to pull that up. It's color. And I can just kind of go through. You guys, my school improvement team and I went over this like half an hour, 45 minutes and kind of nitpicked at some things. So there are adjustments just within this draft, but just for you guys to be able to see kind of have an idea.
That's what you're talking about.
100%. Thank you, Scott. So what you guys see up there, which is a little easier if you want to crank your neck or just what's in front of you, is that 8 block where you have 4 classes one day and 4 another. And both those days you have a homeroom advisory period. One thing that we did, as well as having early bird, so that still would be an option within the block schedule. One of the things that we looked at was how we could kind of balance out some of that time. We're aware if you do a block schedule and you have an extended planning period, first off, that time needs to be productive, but there could be a balancing out with extra duties. So some of the things that I've talked about with my school improvement team, some of the ideas I've come up with, and then they came up with some additional ones. So ways that they can use some of that additional time. So if you look at the beginning of days or the end of days, there might be something like cafeteria duty. With as close as the other schools are, especially the junior high and South Side, I think that it wouldn't be too onerous to have staff from MHS go over and help in some of those morning duties. A lot of times elementary teachers get pulled into those things, and then high school teachers don't. It just kind of evens out some of that. I don't think these guys would turn down help on the playground, help on the buses, help in the cafeteria in the morning. Those are all things without adding a ton to people's plates that does give back some of that time and it makes their time more useful. If you look, I did have to fill some vacancies that aren't currently filled. So yeah, if I don't get Bill Gates for business, I can still make it work, but that's plan A. So we'll see what we get from there. I mentioned that position first because that was one we weren't able to fill last year. So that business one would be a big one in any schedule, traditional or block. That has some gaps in it that currently exist. We've been able to plug them this year, but the hopes is we get a good candidate for that. And then some other spots that you can see with some people that are either full-time subs that we know are moving on and kind of planning for some of that. It is different. It would be different. Change is always complicated. But like I said, we wanted to continue the conversation. I wanted to provide you guys, instead of my words, as much as possible, kind of put something in front of you that you can see and see how that operates. Do you have any specific and or general questions? And then I don't want to take too much time, too much of everybody's time with this.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly have things that I've thought about.
Okay.
I struggle with kids that have, special ed or ADHD issues like that, increasing the time and really not having a good use of time. I certainly recognize there are classes where more time is better. I see a kid in English having 85 minutes and I struggle with that.
Mm-hmm.
How teachers are really planning to use this extra time. What is the benefit to the student? Because it's not so much about the teacher. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
all of this is how the kids will benefit.
100%.
So what benefit will the kids see? Not so much in the classes where it's obvious.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the history or math or, English where they're great doing it every day and having that consistency.
Mm-hmm.
My concern is if a kid misses 2 days of school, are they missing a week?
Yeah.
With the classwork and how that gets factored into it. And frankly, I kind of want to hear from teachers that are not for it and
Okay.
why. Because I kind of want to know, for those teachers, why they're not, I can't imagine every single teacher wants block scheduling. So what are their big concerns? And then also, the fairness, right now, if it's 60-minute prep time, how is that when that one class is not, most of our teachers are not in high school, or I'm sorry, most of the grades are not high school.
Yeah, the
so-
differences in prep time contractually is always, it
Yes.
exists, it's a reality, so for sure I get that. I think one thing I heard that I think was really interesting was maybe some of that teacher input feedback from both sides.
Mhm.
I think that could be something that, whether it's through a survey, I can gather up and bring back in March, you kind of get some additional perspective. And yeah, the logistics, I taught junior high and high school social studies on a block schedule. So yeah, there's a lot of ways I like to break it into probably 5 or 6 different things within any given lesson to keep that moving and to keep that going. At the same time, there totally were times, or I could see where, that's a long stretch of time to try to do an individual lecture, an individual activity. I think variety within a lesson, breaking it up is always key. And yeah, SPED students, kids with ADHD, kids with like low attention, that can be a struggle for sure. So I definitely think being mindful of that. And that's why for me, when I'm not coming and saying we have to do this, this is a conversation I think we just need to keep having.
Mhm.
Yes.
And this looks like a straight block type of schedule. And in my conversations about this, have you looked at any kind of a hybrid?
We talked a lot about that. I did not produce one, just to be honest. This was very, very time consuming. So to add that, I didn't double that up, but that's definitely something where you have double shortened periods where you might have math for the full time, but it's split into 2 chunks. So it's a little easier to kind of manage. So there's definitely ways to build that around lunch periods, to do maybe having two periods at the end of the day instead of the one, so you can split it up for some of those content areas. It just gets that much more complicated and the moving parts are harder to deal with. So for simplicity, this first draft, this is this, and there totally are schools, junior highs through high schools, that do modified blocks.
It was just in my experience, there are some classes that really are conducive to a longer time period.
Yep.
If you've got a big lab that you have to conduct, having an hour to do the lab or an hour and 10 minutes is, you can get it done in 47 minutes, you can't. So you've got your staff and you've got them wanting to teach and they can't because they just don't have the time period. And so, but there are other classes that just don't.
They're harder.
They don't lend themselves to the longer period.
Yep.
You hammer somebody over the head for 47 minutes of calculus and they're ready to be done, right?
Yeah.
So it just depends on that. And that's why I was wondering, because I know it's hard to do. And especially when you're in, have these kind of constrained schedules as far as time goes, but I didn't know if that might make things more difficult for you, but
it could add some flexibility, which is always a positive, because not all the teachers are the same. One thing I have done, just reaching out to the local ROE to talk about some possible training, because that's the other part of this is, and I talked about teachers, if this is something that we do, it has to be done well, it has to be done right. We're not just doing it to get a victory, right? So this has to be productive, like Aaron said, this is for the kids, right? That's the focus. So getting training, getting PD was going to be a big part of that. I haven't set it up because that would be cart before the horse at this point, but it's something that I think would be part and parcel to any of this, is training staff and getting them up to speed, even new teachers or experienced teachers. I have some additional information. I'll come back with you guys next time, but I think that kind of wraps it up. If you could pass those down to Scott, please. I'll just grab those. Thank you, guys.
Oh, which Scott? Sorry.
It's Scott.
Yes.
Scott down here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Moving along to summer's driver's ed.
Mr. Bartos has submitted his proposal for continuing summer driver's ed. That's part of your board packet. We've done this every year. My 2 cents has always been it has to be self-sufficient. He needs enough kids signed up to cover the costs. So if that's okay with everybody, I'll give them the go ahead.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it helps with scheduling.
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
okay, moving along to the sign at the Morrison Junior High.
So this had an interesting vote last month. So we talked about bringing it back in a couple different forms. So we are bringing it back again as a discussion item to see if there's interest in moving forward. The sign was purchased roughly 2010, 2012. Joe,
I think 12.
2012, it worked for 3 or 4 years.
Worked well 3 or 4 years, and it was kind of,
And then it's spotty, and then now it's completely non-functional. The quote is not to replace the sign or the screen, it is to simply remove and replace the electronic components of it. That cost is $21,410 and would be paid for using sales tax or bond dollars. So it would not be coming out of the education fund. It would not be coming out of anything that would be directly linked to educating students.
And that's what the money's for, is,
Yes.
yes. And that's the big key, because to replace the sign was an incredible cost.
Would be in the third, it would be at least $10,000 more.
Yeah.
And then to remove the sign and clean it up is gonna cost money.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah.
I mean, my sense was, it was a vote, it was a vote. That's the way it falls, kind of thing, is how it was. I know board members wanted to bring it back up for discussion, which I think, fair enough, we can add that to discussion items. My 2 cents is that it was something that Mr. Robbins had requested. He uses it quite a bit. It's another communication tool. When we look at our schools, and, part of morale is also how things look and things that are working. And, that's kind of what I saw that towards is, right now we have an empty sign, and to be able to have something that welcomes visitors and families and students and gives that information, I thought was a good use of that money, especially since we know that high school one is working. Like I said, it's, everyone has that opinion on how they want that money spent, so.
I was thinking about this, and I don't know the legality, I can check it, is what if the board wanted to advertise? Sell advertisements.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I see where you're going.
Kind of like you're talking about a scoreboard.
So on that,
So
so
it
your
would
high
pay
sign?
for itself then,
Well, I
kind
mean,
of.
I don't know what that would look like, but if you,
So Scott and I we talked a little bit about this as well. That's why I kind of got a bug in my ear. So I checked with some of the track principals, and some schools around already do this. So you're looking at if you have the scoreboard, you get about $1,000 a year in advertising from individual sponsors. So kind of just multiply that by 1,000 each time you get a sponsor for something, once you have a scoreboard. I don't know the marquee piece. We talked about that too, because that's the way to jumpstart it, for sure.
I don't know what the legality is.
My biggest thing is Joe's gonna use the sign, and if it helps somebody that doesn't have Facebook with communication, that's worth something.
Yes.
So that's the only thing why I was for it, is I know it's gonna be utilized as much as he can possibly do it. He asked for it, so that's why I would guess.
Yeah, if I could just, I'd ask Scott to maybe bring it up again, but I would actually say it was Mrs. Conley who was talking about it the last time, and I forgot about other things it was used for all the time, but she brought up the fact that COVID year, when we couldn't do a promotion, and it was Gigi's class, who's a senior now, she brought up that, and I don't remember it, but, I mean, what she told me I did, but I put every kid's name up there, I put congratulations, so-and-so. I think you told me they came and took pictures by
It
us.
just popped up actually.
And, so I know we talked about it being a communication tool only, but I really, like I said, once you start talking about that, and I remember I put birthdays on there for kids, and it's kind of it's a feel good, I think, on top of just the communication spot, or, the communication part of it. So yes, it gets utilized. I mean, they're the daily things that are always on there, dates, lunches, all that stuff, but I kind of forgot about till she mentioned it, how just the fact that they were very appreciative that they were, and a lot of kids went and got their pictures taken with their name and all that, since we weren't able to do a promotion ceremony, and those types of things. So I think I didn't think of it that last month, but I think there's more to it than just a communication tool, so that's why one of the reasons I asked Scott if he could bring it back up again.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I mean, it doesn't look bad though. I mean, I went out and looked at it, because
Oh,
I
no,
didn't get the
that's not the
opportunity to see it
issue.
the last
Yeah.
time. I didn't get the opportunity to
Yeah.
physically examine the thing.
It's not an eyesore.
It's not an eyesore.
Right.
So I understand that there was a lot of legwork done, but the money we would use for that is the same that we're using for the doors, right? And for the bathrooms and for the things that are directly
Yes.
related to
Yes.
education. So initially I went, I didn't really have enough knowledge, I thought, to reliably vote on that, but I think I do now, you know, and I'm reluctant,
That's fine.
you know, because we've got these other things that are pressing on us that I think are much more directly related to education. So it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Well,
Welcome to the board.
yeah, exactly. And we're not voting this month, so, you know, it's, and like I said, I mean, my sense was the vote is the vote kind of thing, but certainly needed just a little more discussion, so.
It's not, didn't the HVAC system come under original budget anyways, though, by a little bit?
Then by, we were.
21,000.
21,000, no, it was a couple, I think it was like 200,000.
What I'm getting at is, there's some extra money we need to do. The plan was to improve the outside of the buildings. So.
And the way it was put to me was, they came in under budget with the HVAC, and the idea was to put some of that money back into the outside of the junior high.
But do we have drainage issues in the back of the building?
There's issues everywhere. It all depends on what you want to start with.
Yeah, we do.
That's a priority discussion, I think, that we as
Yeah.
a board need to have, is what's our
We
priority.
do, and I don't think we've ever identified what's causing that. We've done some work back there.
Well, the downspouts go straight into the foundation. That
Yeah.
might
Yeah.
cause
And
part
we
of it.
talked about backfilling it, doing some other things.
Mhm.
That's something I should have Scott look at. Scott's probably much more adept at doing it than
Scott's our architect.
previous.
No, I thought we were talking about this guy.
But I think it'll also be good to see how.
The last thing we want is let Scott with his skid loader out.
With the new HVAC, I think it'll be important to see too how that, because that'll control the humidity a little bit better. And with the old system, it just wasn't good, so. You know, it's hard to say, we never really saw like water coming in from that foundation or anything like that. It just, at times, the floor would just be hallways, just covered with a thin, from the humidity mainly, so.
Did they have
The
it
new
marked
HVAC
out?
might-
But they have it marked out in the back where they're.
They did,
tie it
yeah, a
into
couple of years ago, they
They
had
were
it all.
gonna put drain tile in, they were gonna.
They were gonna dig it out, put tile in, fill it in, and then Julie came, marked it all, had everything marked and ready to go, and then it just never came to fruition, so.
That was when Dean was still here.
Mhm. Yeah, that was, 6 years ago.
And what
But there was still a lot of conversation then that it was the HVAC system. So now that that's replaced, that could, I mean, I don't know how soon it is, but I think we probably gotta get through the spring and summer months.
Yeah.
In the fall to see, is everything okay? You know, is it?
But having
did
the,
it take care
but
of
having the
the
roof wire go right down into the foundation probably is not a.
Well, like I said, and then there were a few other things that were causing some of that too that have been rectified. You know, gutters were not cleaned and they were plugged, and Corey's been up there now getting those. Water was flowing over the top of those onto the ground right in front. Corey, since he comes up there now, pressure washes, gets the gutters all cleaned out, make sure water's flowing down and away from the building like it's supposed to. And that's made a big difference too.
And also, I mean, it's not like there's a time limit on this sign. I mean, certainly price may vary. At some point, we had a kind of running spreadsheet last year of different priorities, and I think that might be useful for us to look at is, you know,
I can reshare that.
yeah, having
I
that,
did share it with everybody, I'll reshare it.
yeah, just having that spreadsheet so we can kind of see, you know, where we have this money and what are the priorities, and that might help us make a, you know, good decision.
And I'd really like the principals to be vocal about what they want. Because I know I brought this up before, I didn't hear anything back, and then I ran into our Southside principal and kind of cornered him, was like, well, you know, this.
There's a couple things.
Yeah, so like, we want to hear, okay? We want to hear what you guys want. You guys see it at the schools. You know, Joe does so much, and Mr. Evans does so much and never complains, but the bathrooms there.
Oh, they complain.
I was gonna say, what's the sign?
Not letting that one go.
Is it allowed if I give some insight on that?
On
From the
the,
public or not?
It's a touchy ground because to let public comments in, so I appreciate it, but it might be something after the fact.
Sign up next
Yes.
meeting.
Yep.
corner somebody after the meeting.
Yeah.
Bring it up after the meeting.
It just opens too many doors. so I
Or sign up
appreciate
next
it.
meeting and as a speaker, and then.
That's all right, it's only about that subject.
David, what do you think of your sign since you have a sign, what's your opinion on your sign?
It's fantastic. I love it. We talked about the advertising piece, Mr. Dolan and I, just because the sports marketing angle, to be able to put stuff up. I mean, it has tons of information. It looks great. It's constantly changing. It's super easy to use. The secretaries do it. They can edit the message in 5 seconds and put it right back up. They can edit pictures. It's animated. And yes,
Video too, right?
what?
You can do video too, right?
Yeah, the marketing piece, I think, is definitely something we can put things out there, and it's not just, it's creating revenue from a place that doesn't exist. It's not adding revenue to something you're already doing. You're not selling more sausages and candy bars. You're doing something totally new. So yeah, right now it's not being utilized except as a great communication tool and a connection with the community, and you can go farther.
Sounds good.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, moving along to the high school track resurfacing bid.
All right, this is an action item, and the motion is that the board approves the bid of Burns and Jones, Inc. from St. Louis, Missouri for $985,000.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I will second. Discussion. This was a high
This is
bid.
the same company that bid the first time that we rejected.
Yeah.
And it is the exact same amount.
I thought we were gonna never mind.
Right.
We are looking at other alternatives that are less expensive. But if the board would like to move forward with this,
Yes.
they can vote to approve this or reject it, how they see fit.
Okay.
Okay,
No problem.
I don't think I broke any laws there.
roll call.
Cromwell,
No.
Wilkins,
No.
Samhoff,
No.
Engelkens,
No.
Volkers,
No.
Pielson,
No.
Lucky,
No.
Okay.
Moving along to the van purchase.
The motion is the Board of Education approves the purchase of a 2019 Ford Transit van from John Brackenmeyer for the cost of $36,500.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
What will this van be used for, just so people are aware?
Transporting student athletes to events, and it'll probably put into the location of taking kids to alternative placement settings, so they can go to Rockwell for every day.
And will the state cost savings based on, or is there a potential cost savings by not hiring R.C. Smith and not hiring outside?
Well, we're at the point where, yes, we are in need of another vehicle, or else we would have to have R.C. Smith do it, or another outside contractor do it, which would be much more expensive over the long haul.
Okay.
How many, what's the passenger?
10.
That includes the driver and.
It's 9 passengers and a driver, so it would be transport 9 students.
But they can't sit in front, right? So it'd be technically 8.
There are some times they're allowed to sit, but yes, it's probably more than 8 passengers.
Somebody like examined the thing and done their due diligence on that, okay.
Any other discussion? Okay, roll call.
Samhoff,
Yes.
Engelkens,
Yes.
Volkers,
Yes.
Pielson,
Yes.
Cromwell,
Yes.
Wilkins,
Yes.
Lucky.
Yes. Tax abatement resolution.
Do you want to just get the motion and I'll explain?
Yeah, sure.
So the motion is the Board of Education approves the resolution to abate taxes for the following bonds and to transfer any necessary funds as determined to the bond and interest fund to cover said abatement. First one is general obligation refunding school bonds, alternative revenue source, series 2019, and general obligation school bonds, alternative revenue source, series 2023.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
All right, so the way bonds work is if it is a health, life, safety bond or a working cash bond or something along those lines, the county clerk, Dana Nelson, will tell us what our bond, what our payment is, and then she will assess enough in property taxes to cover those payments. The way the alternative revenue works is instead of the county clerk assessing for these bond payments, we are abating those taxes and saying, do not assess those to the public. Rather, we are going to use this source of revenue to cover our principal and interest payment for the year. Does that make sense? So essentially what we're saying is we're going to take money from our 1% sales tax fund and use it to pay off this year's loan payment.
So what's the advantage to that?
It does not increase the tax rate.
Yes. Makes farmers happy.
Other questions? And there's a long resolution, it's multiple pages. If you want to read it, if you're bored, go ahead. But I would do a roll call.
Okay, roll call. Okay, roll call.
Engelkens,
Yes.
Folkers,
Yes.
Pielson,
Yes.
Frankel,
Yes.
Wilkins,
Yes.
Danhoff,
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes. Moving along to new business, we have the Morrison Athletic Booster Club request.
So the motion is that the Board of Education approves the request of the Morrison Athletic Booster Club to install a heating and air conditioning system in the football concession stand with all installation costs provided or covered by the Morrison Booster Club.
So I have a motion.
So moved.
I'll second. Discussion.
Do you want to talk?
Me too.
Okay.
We have actually, Workman Heating and Cooling is going to be provided free to us. And right now Randy Nelson is trying to find time to go check the, breaker boxes to make sure that it covers. Jeff Workman said that he looked at that too. So once we have that, then we will move forward with it. I think it's just gonna be air conditioning now. We determined as a board that like this fall, you all well know how hot it was 100+ degrees in there. What we've been using doesn't even begin to help with that. We don't get to cold temperatures until like November when we're in football playoffs, and it's still warm enough with all the coolers that are in there that we do not need the heat. We'd rather just get the air.
Sure.
So are you getting, so it says here heating and air conditioning.
She's alternating that.
Yeah, it, once we, at our last meeting 2 weeks ago, which was after.
We talked.
Yeah, after we talked, we had rediscussed at our January meeting that we just were gonna try possibly for the air conditioning, just because of the cost standpoint. And then when it came back as being donated, we said, okay, we're moving ahead with that. So we know you guys own the property, even though we use it for the most part, but we still like to run through the rent.
Sure. Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Release of outdated and unused books.
The motion is the Board of Education approves the release of used and outdated health books at Southside Elementary and approves the release of unused sets of novels Through My Eyes and Under Siege.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second. Okay. Any discussion? Any questions? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so moving along to the K through 5 art and music positions.
So about a week ago, there was a discussion, kerfuffle, that's a real good word, regarding the belief that the Board of Education was cutting art and music at the K-5 level. For those of those that don't know, this year is the first year we have not had a dedicated music position at the elementary, and that's because we did not get applicants. We were fortunate enough to find a very qualified applicant, and we're able to use her as a long-term sub. She has indicated that she is going to relocate for family reasons, and we support her and wish that her nothing but the best, but are sad to see her go. With that being said, the discussion must then turn to what is the future of those positions, especially as we look at budgetary considerations and whatnot. At this point, we have an applicant for K-5 art. Now, in order to teach K-5 or elementary art, you only have to have an elementary teaching certificate and have taken one art class, which is what this candidate has done. So they are certified and qualified to teach it, but the board needs to, or I would prefer, or rather the board give some opinion as to what you would like to see the future of that look like, because we're getting to the point where we can fill a position like this, but is it truly an art class where they're going to be learning about art, or is it a time filler? whether it's art or whether it's music. And those are the difficult decisions that you as board members have to make. So I can answer questions, open it up for comments.
So what do they need for, okay, so what is the requirements for a music teacher?
Same thing, one music class.
So one music class?
Yep, same thing for PE.
Well, and I think I heard a whisper of how hard it is to find an art
I
teacher.
don't know how hard it is to teach
Oh,
that.
to teach it, oh, no,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's not a whole lot that goes into K through.
Well, I think the issue is
Well,
there's not that many people going into art education at an elementary level, so that's, okay. Right, so we're kind of dealing with, and this is kind of the general consensus of what, I was kind of reading from different Facebook things. We don't want to just put someone in there that is just, just a place filler. However, in the state of where Illinois is with, the whole country with teacher shortages and whatnot, and people just not going into those positions, do we have to look at a more creative way to fill this time? Because for my daughter, art and music, that's some of her favorite time of day. It's a break for teachers, it's a break for the kids, it's certainly a great thing. Does she need to learn art theory in 4th grade? No, so it's, I think a question we have to kind of figure out is how we want to structure the program. And I've seen a question about, why do we have an art position posted but not music? And I'm going to answer it, but I might be incorrect. Is it because we have a long-term sub, and so that position has to be posted at all times?
That position does have to be posted.
So it's not so much that we're not, we're cutting that program. It's that because we have a long-term sub in that position right now as the art teacher, there always has to be that position posted. So
That's a legal thing.
That's a legal thing. So I just wanted to kind of answer that because I'd seen that a bunch online.
So when are we going to post the music?
You tell me if you want to post it.
And
I think
then
for
generally, right, and generally, when does that happen? Is that every school year, or is it a progressive thing, or?
Well, maybe we should come together with some more creative ways to fill that. I'm serious. There are other things that we can do. We do have churches in town that have choirs and things like that, and maybe contract with someone just for doing, I would love to see I feel bad though, these kids are missing out on spring or Christmas programs and, maybe for like a specialty. I'm just suggesting a possibility to utilize some talent we have in our community. There wouldn't be a teacher, but that's what they do. It's music, but they're not a teacher.
And legally, how can we bring that in, I guess is my
You
question.
can do that. It can't be for a grade though.
Okay.
It can't be what?
It can't be for a grade unless they're a certified teacher.
Right, okay.
Which, I'd like to encourage them to use their creativeness in both subjects and get the release from the.
I just think there's a way to utilize, knowing that we can't find those teachers, then maybe we tap what's here in the community.
And I would also point out that it's probably split pretty close, that some people have dedicated art teachers, but not music, and vice versa. It's
Probably based on what they can fill.
Yes, and that's.
But if we're not
years ago.
posting it, then.
I agree, yeah, we
They
should
should
post it.
They should post the position.
There's nothing, I think that's a good idea. There's nothing wrong with posting it.
If we could post the position, I think that would be a good idea.
And if we're interested in finding a music teacher, then
Right.
we have to post it.
I think that's where some of the confusion was. You clarified it here, so hopefully the people that were upset are watching. I would hope they would watch. I wish they were here, but they're not. So, but if we can post the position.
Mr. Andrews, you post it tomorrow, please.
And then as far as qualifications, and again, I'm not sure how much of the board we don't hire them.
So what was the
interview.
qualification? They have to have their teaching license?
They have to have an elementary teaching certificate and have taken one art class or one music class.
Well,
And that could have been 15 years ago. 10 years ago or whatever.
but if they're elementary certified,
If they're willing to, I guess, spend that time to do creative things, is that a start to,
It's worth looking into.
Yeah.
I'll just be the bad guy here.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have an art program right now, which is doing very well. When you look at reducing costs and you're gonna do an art and a music, you're then gonna have to decide between an art teacher and a music teacher, or a math interventionist at Northside, or a math intervention at Southside. Things that directly impact core curriculum. So when you keep adding things, you're not reducing costs. And right now, you don't have a music teacher. You wanna post it, but you're running out of money.
But we gotta be upfront with these people, and that's a good start right there. I mean, we gotta be upfront with them, because they were concerned.
Sure.
And they came with questions, and then after they came with questions, it seemed like it blew up. And that's where I was a little confused, was the blow up, because it went through the roof.
So what are the kids
and
doing this year?
What's that?
Well, on the north side, they're doing extra reading, and that's why their reading scores are so high.
Okay, so they're not doing any music at all?
No.
and we did examine a lot of the elementary schools in the area, and there were a lot that, didn't have those programs. I mean, at this point, if we don't have art or music next year, I think it's fair to post both and see what we get. And
Just
have
when
that
you post it
conversation.
doesn't mean it's a guarantee we're gonna
Right.
hire somebody.
Right.
Yeah, and it's harder to get people, there's no doubt about it.
I mean, I was kind of thinking as far as that time frame, a generalized fine arts type time, and I don't know how realistic that is, obviously, to have a time that is both, sometimes art, sometimes music, you're not gonna find that, but if.
Would find somebody who has an elementary
Right.
teaching interpretive.
And if
What if
it's one semester is this, one semester is second, I mean, that certainly, that is
Actually, I kind of like that.
I mean, I killed it.
I like that idea.
So, all right, well, that's kind of the discussion we were looking to have. Any other questions? Feedback? Okay. Let's move along to the release of used football helmets for resale.
Motion is Board of Education approves the release of used and unsafe football helmets for resale.
Do I have a motion?
Did you say unsafe? I'm sorry.
Yes.
So moved.
What did I say? Did I say unsafe?
Yeah, that's what it
Yeah,
says.
that's right.
Oh, okay. I thought I said that.
That's what
I
it
did.
is.
Yeah. Okay. Did we get a motion? Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion?
Are they used and unsafe, or are some they're unsafe and some are just used?
I believe none of them can be used safely.
So then why are we selling them?
To like
They're like
some
for-
kid that
Oh,
wants
wait,
it.
wait.
For the alumnus to graduate in 1975.
But you're saying they're unsafe.
They're
They're not
safer
being
than
used.
nothing.
They're not being sold to go out and play football.
Okay, okay.
They're gonna
Clarify.
they're gonna make a lamp out of them, or they're gonna sell.
Okay, they can make a lamp out of it then.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Purchase of classroom radios to support student and staff safety.
So one of the things that came out of our annual crisis committee meeting was a better way to communicate in the event of a crisis. Currently, we have an app on all our teachers' phones. It's called Crisis Go. We pay several $1,000s for it. It has some really good features, but some hindrances. So we got to talking, and one of the things that came up was the possibility of buying walkie-talkies for all the classrooms in the district that would be then set to one channel. So if something was going on at Southside, it could be heard at Northside and in all the buildings. And so we piloted that at Southside, and I asked Mr. McCormick if he could speak a little bit to how that worked for them.
Yeah, so we put a walkie-talkie in each classroom. That included like by county, the counselor's office, and all those areas where students could be. So I walked into one of the teachers. She was in the library at the time. I had her initiate the lockdown from the library. She got on the radio. She called out, "We're going on lockdown." We repeated it from the office, and then I had Sheila do an announcement over the intercom system. And we were locked down within 20 seconds. All doors were locked, and there was no sounds coming from anywhere. Typically with Crisis Go, when we did a drill, PE couldn't really hear it, or the teacher didn't have their phone on them. So it was like class was continuing as normal while everyone else was locking down. So that could be a potential threat in the future. So, yeah, like I said, within 20 seconds, everybody was silent, locked down, all doors locked, and it was pretty impressive. So I want to give some praise to the staff for doing a really great job with that situation.
So then that would be used strictly for that then?
Yeah, and we talked about how we would use it for like a fire drill. So right now, when we do a fire drill, everybody goes outside, they have their backpacks, and they hold up a sign. It's green, everybody's got all their kids, and if it's red, that means you're missing a student. Well, the walkie-talkie would give you the opportunity to say, hey, Joey is missing, I need to find him, and then whoever has him, or if nobody has him, then we can find him a lot quicker, instead of kind of going through those signs and trying to check. So it could speed
And
up.
Crisis Go has your class rosters, but you would have to flip through them
very
and
challenging.
then hit a button and then submit, and this is much more real time. It's very much the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid.
So it sounds like it'll save us money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Save a lot of money, yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome. Okay. Let's, roll call.
No, we're not
Oh,
applying.
no.
It's just
Oh, I'm
discussion.
sorry. It's discussion. Sorry. Okay. Cheerleader uniform, this is action.
So we have request from the cheerleaders to purchase 14 new sets of football uniforms for $3,765 and 14 sets of basketball uniforms for $3,065.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion?
Are we on a rotation for ordering?
So the way, we have a policy where they can request the board to pay for part of the uniforms, and how much they ask the board to pay, that then dictates when they can ask for it again. So in this case, they're asking for the board to pay 80%. And I think, without looking at the top of my head, they won't be able to ask for uniforms again for another 4 years.
4 years is what I remember.
Okay. Any other questions?
And
The policy's fine, but how often do we look into that policy to?
I look at it every year.
Determine
I
if,
changed it.
well, but to determine if, should we be repurchasing new uniforms every 4 years for whatever, whether it be cheerleading or for basketball or football or whatever else, if they're just to purchase them versus, hey, we're starting to show some wear.
I would recommend that as you start looking at ways to save money, re-looking at that policy is probably a good idea.
Like how, does football get uniforms every 4 years then too?
No, they get them, but theirs take a beating more than anybody else's. And I think there's a special provision for football because theirs are about $16,000.
I do not have that information in front of me.
I figured not.
I think wrestling singlets too, am I wrong?
Well, if you only ask for the board to pay half, you
Yeah.
can get them about every 2 years. That's the way it was written.
Right.
And I think Dustin makes a very good point that this was written in times where financially
More flush.
things were more flush with cash. So I would recommend that this be the last one you purchase under this policy, and then you look at something for next year.
Makes sense.
So when we sell the football uniforms that they're currently trying to sell online,
That goes back into their account, and then they use that to help offset the cost of the new ones.
Okay.
We're one of the, as far as I know.
It goes towards their 20%, but not the school's 80%.
We are one of the very few districts that I know of that requires teams to pay part of their uniform costs. I think most other districts pay for it, they just pay for it outright.
Okay.
Now, we used to have a policy where they had to pay all of it.
Right.
I think when Dr. Gerard was here, that
Yeah,
was the
that's what I
policy.
remember, yeah. So, okay. Let's roll call this.
Wilkins,
Yes.
Zamha,
Yes.
Angleton,
Yes.
Folker's,
Yes.
Pielson,
Yes.
Trumbull,
No.
Lucky.
Yes. Let's move along to certified personnel.
Motion is the Board of Education approves Aaron Morris as the Morrison High School musical director for the 2023-2024 school year.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
I met with Mrs. Morris with some of her concerns with the music, the whole music department, and she is a fantastic teacher. She's everything I'm looking for in a teacher in this district, so absolutely.
Do you know what the musical is?
The Lightning Thief. What is that? Yeah, Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, she was fantastic. She's a bright young lady that if you get to talk to her, you understand what I'm talking about, so.
Okay, so, roll call.
Zamha,
Yes.
Wilkins,
Yes.
Folker's,
Yes.
Pielson,
Yes.
Trumbull,
Yes.
Wilkins,
Didn't I say yes?
I think you did.
And I think you did. She started with you.
I thought you started with me. It's okay.
Zamha,
Yes.
Yes, you said yes.
But-
Lucky.
Yes.
I was thinking-
Okay. So we'll be moving into another closed session at this point, but there'll be no vote after that.
You missed him. That's who it was. Miss Dan.
Oh, it's,
Go ahead, say it. Yes, no? Yes.
My head still hurts. 10 minutes, well, 6, 7 minutes. What? I thought we'd be done before 8:30. Wait, I forgot there were 3 of you. You should still go. Excuse me. I wanted to.